Jurassic World Rebirth, the next sequel in the Jurassic Park film series, is going to be coming out on July 2nd of 2025. The film is supposed to dive into a mission involving the extraction of DNA from 3 of the largest species on land, sea, and air. David Koepp, the writer of the original Jurassic Park and The Lost World, has returned to write this new movie script, and he just revealed something that I think is going to help us understand this new film a lot more. What's going on, guys? Hope you're all doing well. Now for today's video, I wanted to talk about the new interview that has come out from David Koepp and what he talked about in relation to the next Jurassic Park movie. Because honestly, this is a pretty massive update that reveals a lot of where the filmmaker's headspace is at during the new project's development. And I'm just going to jump right into what he said directly and not beat around the bush at all for you guys. So when it came to writing Jurassic World Rebirth, David Koepp said, quote, "That was a ball. I had such a nice time on it. I hope people like the movie because the series tended to change after Jurassic Park 3, and it felt like, okay, so let's change our tone. Steven Spielberg and I were interested in a tone that was maybe more akin to the very first movie. I saw it early on as a mission movie. I like things that are driven by bottles, by containment, you know? Now, just to interject here real quick before we go on any further, I've been making Jurassic Park videos for literally years. And this whole idea of a mission-based movie actually reminds me of some of the early talks David Koepp and Steven Spielberg had while he was writing The Lost World Jurassic Park, which Steven really had some nice things to say about another one of David's scripts from back then, which was the original Mission Impossible. Spielberg had been into that movie, and if you go over transcripts from The Lost World's writing, in early pre-production he even likened some Lost World ideas they had to what David had written in the first Mission Impossible movie. And I do think it's very likely that he incorporated some of those way back in the day JP2 ideas into this new Jurassic World film. Just something I thought was fun to go over. Now look, David Koepp went on to speak about Jurassic World Rebirth further with, quote, "And so developing a limited team and a thing that they have to accomplish, that was all really fun. And it was just fun to return to that world of great adventure backed by real science and write some cool new characters. You don't often get a chance to have a blank slate and say, what do you want to do?" There were no franchise expectations other than dinosaurs. So with that quote, it really does look like both David Koepp and Steven Spielberg looked at how the Jurassic World trilogy progressed and said, we need to return to what made the earlier Park movies so different. David is literally saying here that they are aiming for the first film's tone, but that they are basically saying, don't worry about any of what was done recently that changed what it meant to be a Jurassic Park movie. Ever since JP3, things have been different, and this new movie was created without any of that extra baggage and is instead confirmed to have been talked about on a writing level as going back to the days of the first 3 films. Now look, David Koepp went on to also say, quote, "I actually wrote a list of our 9 commandments, which was inspired by Chuck Jones, who had written 9 commandments for the Roadrunner cartoons. Like all adventures must take place in the American Southwest, gravity is always the coyote's worst enemy, all products must come from the Acme Corporation, and so I made a list of things that we had to abide by. One was the events of the previous 6 movies that cannot be contradicted or denied because I don't like a retcon. Those are no fun. 2. Humor is oxygen. Science must be real. You know, all the things that we wanted our movie to be. And I just had a great fun doing it with Steven and then with Gareth Edwards. Right there alone, it looks like not only is this movie going back to basics, but it's actually not rebooting everything and is keeping the Trevorrow stuff in continuity. But it's also keeping a lot of those developments at arm's length, if you know what I mean. So that gives David Koepp breathing room to shy away from some of those things and go back to what he did when he wrote Jurassic Park and the Lost World Jurassic Park in the 1990s. David wrapped up the discussion by saying, again, quote, "It was trippy to go back to a London soundstage 30 years after I walked onto a Los Angeles soundstage and see the jungle and the people in their jungle gear. And it was just all back. It even smelled the same." Now look guys, Jurassic World Rebirth is really shaping up to be one of the most interesting developments this franchise has had in a very long time. Personally, Personally, I think all of this info is good news, and it actually seems like it's going to be something that could, in theory, help Jurassic Park pick itself back up and become a franchise that makes all of its fans happy again. At this point, I really think that if they get a home run with this movie, it could very well help build a new era for the series that feels way more like the old days. And speaking of which, I wanted to focus on the ideas he mentioned regarding tone. If David really thinks that the films moved away from some of the core stuff that was laid out in the first 3 movies, what does that mean that he could bring back in this one? I may do a whole video on that in the future, but one other thing I want to mention is that we actually don't know what all of David Koepp's 9 commandments were for the Jurassic Park film series. We know of a few. It looks like the science being real is a very, very big thing. It looks like humor is going to be used as oxygen to breathe in between giant scenes, probably like Ian Malcolm in the original Jurassic Park, which I really do like that kind of sarcastic humor, you know, lines like,
"Remind me to thank John for a lovely weekend."
And it also looks like he is totally not throwing away any of the events from the previous few movies, which I gotta say, man, I know some people might be disappointed in hearing that because they really don't like where everything went off with Dominion, and I understand completely. I really think if there's one thing that Jurassic World Dominion really messed up bad, it was all of the potential for Biosyn and Lewis Dodson and how that was just so far away from the Michael Crichton source material. It's just shocking to even see that bear the name of those characters and those companies and really everything to do with all of that. Now, when it comes to David Koepp writing this movie, we're going to sum up everything he said with the following. This is a mission-based film. He's going back to the world that he created in Jurassic Park and the Lost World Jurassic Park in the 90s. He's going to be using 9 commandments that make everything grounded to the way that he actually shaped them in the screenplays that made the first 2 films, but he's also incorporating Jurassic Park 3 in there. That movie is what he personally feels was like that was the end of a certain tone that Jurassic Park had before the Jurassic World movies changed everything up and went in a very, very different direction. I have no idea what this movie is actually going to come off as, but it looks like he worked closely with both Steven Spielberg and Gareth Edwards, so there is something to talk about when it comes to getting Jurassic Park back to being Jurassic Park again. But hey guys, those are all just my own thoughts and opinions on the subject matter. What do you think? Are you impressed with this information from David Koepp, or are you someone that's more or less just like, yeah, I'll wait until I see it? Whatever your own thoughts and opinions happen to be on the subject matter, I'd love to hear all about them in the comments down below. Now, before I go, I want to thank everyone that's helped me build my channel over the years. I'd also like to thank every one of you guys who've watched my stuff. You've all been extremely cool to me. If you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate a like and hope that you'll consider subscribing. God bless you all. Christ is King. See you guys in the next video, and as always, take it easy.